All right, hello. This is our group course presentation on the Ford company. I'm Aaron, and I'll start us off. So, a brief overview of the company before I begin my breakdown. The Ford company is an automobile manufacturer that was founded by Henry Ford in 1903, and it now operates mainly from Michigan, but it's got operations in over 100 different countries across the globe. So to begin, we'll start with an overview of the company's broader goals and their mission statement, which they state is to help build a better world where every person is free to move and pursue their dreams. And when we begin to break down this statement, I think we can best see how they try to achieve this mission through one of their stated goals, which is to become the world's most trusted company. Ford Company has begun making efforts to be environmentally conscious, and they have a pledge to become carbon neutral within the next 25 years and have this large shift towards the production of electric vehicles. And we can see their commitment to this further by their $10 million investment into EV production, which is most likely their attempt to gain a sizable market share of the EV industry. And as we move on, we'll begin to take a deeper look at this market share against the rest of the market. So we do an external analysis of Ford. So to begin, I broke the market down using the five forces model. And I'll begin with the rivalry of the industry, where we can see that it is a fairly competitive market with Ford maintaining about 5% market share. Rivalry has also increased a lot recently with the new popularity of electric vehicles and just EV companies in general really coming up. And this is made worse because there is very little variance between different types of cars, and they all fulfill the same purpose of transporting people from point A to point B, which does end up giving consumers a lot of options and allows them to be picky when they're deciding which car to purchase. But despite these, there is good news for Ford in the industry, with a big strong suit being their very low threat of substitution. The only realistic replacements for cars are bikes or public transit, and neither of these really have the speed or convenience of a car and would really require a large change to how cities and towns are constructed in order to really hurt the automotive industry. And more good news for the car industry is that companies have decent supplier power. Since they work with many suppliers, they have the ability to quickly switch between them if they really need to. And specifically, Ford actually produces a lot of their own resources, which gives them even less reliance on outside suppliers. And finally, the threat of new entrants is also very low, as they have a lot of well-established brand names, which is also very important to the consumer, and also they have very high cost to enter. But these high barriers to entry were broken recently, and I'll begin to get into that rapid change in the changing industry. The automotive industry is typically pretty stagnant, usually with no major advancements made to cars that would really uproot the industry. But this changed recently with this large shift of consumer preferences to electric vehicles. This preference switch happened for a few reasons, some of them being gas prices and increased climate awareness from consumers in general. And this is propped up too by government regulation and investments from them that puts more funding into EVs and their charging stations too, which make them even more accessible and more tempting to buy. So because of this, some companies were able to bypass the large barriers of entry to the industry, and we see now some of the biggest producers are EV companies like Tesla. But Ford has begun to make some changes to tackle this huge shift, and I'll begin to look at that with an internal analysis of the Ford company. I'll start with our breakdown with a SWOT analysis of the company. So one of Ford's greatest strengths is their ability to innovate, which is backed up by their large investment potential and market position. This allows them to dedicate so much time and resources to innovating, but also they do have some major weaknesses, with one of them being the reliance on the US market, which makes up a large majority of their sales, which could be scary for them because they already have high production costs. And with these switching interests, they are mainly a gas-powered car company. But even after these changes have happened so much, Ford still does have opportunities to remedy these weaknesses. As we can see, Ford has already begun to put a large investment into the EV industry as they try to expand their market as much as possible. But finally, some of these large threats they face are large competitions and a lot of government environmental regulation. But Ford is able to mitigate these risks mainly due to the innovation that I mentioned in the strengths uh, before that gives them a good edge in the competition. And this seems mainly in part due to their Ford Plus program. The program separates the company's research and development into different separate sections to tackle different sectors, and it allows them to really individualize products better for customers. Like one of these divisions is the Ford Model E section, which is dedicated to their new EV ventures. And its main goal is to make the company capable of producing 2 million EVs within the next 2 years. And it's these kinds of practices that really help Ford cater to their customer base and helps them maintain their place in the market. And we'll get more into this as I wrap this up and pass this to Patrick to cover the next section, competitive advantage.
The significance of Ford Plus, an effort to combine Ford's historical capabilities with cutting-edge electric vehicle technologies, is emphasized in the company's 2023 annual report. This strategy, which calls for significant expenditures and the creation of many employments, is essential to Ford's long-term competitiveness. In order to prevent hiccups and scrutiny from activist shareholders, Ford's management is especially focused on fulfilling shareholder expectations. Ford profited greatly in 2023 from tax credits and government incentives, which caused their adjusted effective tax rate to drop to negative 9.1%. These yearly and eligibility-based incentives are essential to Ford's financial strategy. The U.S. Inflation Reduction Act has a significant impact since it provides tax incentives that support domestic EV manufacturing and supply chains. It is anticipated that these credits, which are valid until 2032, will improve Ford's financial results and help their Ford Plus plan. Ford's emphasis on government incentives draws attention to their economic competitive advantage and motivates them to create cutting edge, clean car, and technological innovations. Ford's strategic investments are perceived as being dependent on the IRA incentives, which provides them an advantage over rivals who might not take the advantage of these benefits. Ford made 169.82 billion in revenue in the first half of 2023 and was listed as the fourth most popular automobile brand globally. Ford was able to offer competitive costs through innovations like the assembly line because of its growth strategy, which was initially focused on cost leadership. Ford switched from a cost leadership approach to a differentiation strategy as the market changed and customers' preferences switched to amenities and styles. Ford now faces competition from forward-thinking automakers like Tesla and Toyota, thanks to its lineup of electric vehicles and hybrid cars. By appealing to a variety of demographics, the differentiation strategy hopes to increase brand loyalty and decrease limitations, especially in fleet cars used by the police and government. Differentiation, however, comes with the higher costs and risks. For example, the market may move towards less expensive options, or certain segments may be left out, such as the four-door sedan market, which Ford has shied away from in favor of trucks, SUVs, and crossovers. Even with this advantageous strategic positioning, Ford might gain from returning to the sedan segment. Japanese automakers with strong brand loyalty.
Thank you, Patrick. I will be starting with Ford's global strategy. For Ford's global strategy, the company employs a transnational strategy, which uses a combination of the standardization strategy and multi-domestic strategy. In the US market, SUVs, crossovers, and trucks are highly preferred by consumers, so Ford focuses their production on these types of vehicles. Sedans, such as the Ford Taurus, the Ford Fusion, and compact sedans, such as the Ford Focus, have had low sales, so Ford has decided to discontinue the production of these models in the US market. However, in Europe, compact cars are still highly preferred as the streets tend to be more narrow. Ford continues to produce and redesign the Ford Focus for the European market. This strategy allows the company to expand globally and be able to meet the needs of the other local demographics of other countries. Despite this effort, Ford is having trouble expanding their electric vehicles to European markets due to Europe frequently changing their legislation regarding acceptable vehicle emissions. attempting to reduce them to a minimum. Ford struggles to create a hybrid or an electric vehicle that would prove to be both reliable and cost-effective for the European market. Despite their struggles in Europe, Ford has been doing quite well in the Australian market. In 2023, Ford hit number 3 for the most popular car brand, with the Ford Ranger being the number 1 selling vehicle in the Australian market for that year. Ford has been able to establish a strong foothold in the Australian market. Next, I would like to cover Ford's corporate social responsibility, starting off with some of the reputable leadership Ford has had over the years. Ford is well known for being an innovative leader in the automotive industry. This reputable leadership can be traced all the way back to Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motor Company. Henry most notably reduced the workday to 8 hours and nearly doubled employee wages to $5 per day in order to combat employee turnover rates and increase workplace satisfaction. Another prominent leader was Alan Mulally, who was CEO from 2006 to 2014. During a time when the country was in an economic crisis, Alan was able to implement business strategies that helped the company avoid bankruptcy. This helped solidify Ford's spot as an industry leader. More recently, Jim Farley has been CEO since 2020. Jim's main initiative is to increase electric vehicle production from 600,000 in 2023 to over 2 million by 2026. Ford is currently focusing heavily on environmental responsibility. The company is planning on reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. This would include attaining zero emissions from their vehicles, factories, as well as suppliers. Additionally, they are motivated to use 100% carbon-free electricity in all manufacturing by 2035 and eliminate single-use plastics and reach zero waste to landfills across all business operations by 2030. As for social aspects, the company plans to only source raw materials that have been produced responsibly, as well as continue focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion frameworks in order to promote a healthy workplace. When it comes to Ford's governance, this area could use a bit of work. While CEO Jim Farley has been focusing on the company's environmental impact, Ford has faced backlash for instances of socially irresponsible behavior. This includes age discrimination against older workers and numerous vehicle recalls and safety issues. Coming up to the ESG rating, this data was collected by the London Stock Exchange Group. Ford has an overall ESG rating of 76 out of 100. This falls into the low end of the excellent category. Separately, the company has scored an 87 in environmental, an 86 in social, and 43 in governance. However, any small changes on individual scores could potentially have a big impact on the overall ESG rating. Ford has the most opportunity for improvement in their governance category. This is something that may take time to improve, but should be addressed promptly. Overall, Ford has had a very rich history with great leadership. The company continues to be more innovative as well as more socially and environmentally responsible. If we had the $1,000 to invest in Ford, we would, without a doubt, make that investment. Thank you all for watching.